The topic of my presentation is solid waste management using 5 hours of sustainable development. I'm Dr. Parminder Jeet Kaur. I did my PhD in chemical engineering from IIT Delhi. And after that, I have taught in Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University in biochemical engineering department. Right now, I'm working as a senior policy fellow in Department of Science and Technology, New Delhi. So I would like to start my presentation with the famous saying of Miss Marie Curie, my role model. She says that I'm among the one who think that science has a great beauty. So those who can see a beauty in science, they can find the solution for all the problems. The overview of my presentation is, first of all, I'll talk about sustainable development. What is sustainable development? Why we are performing this session of sustainable development? What are the major problems concerning the environment these days? What are the concerns of environmentalists, politicians, social workers, and everyone in general? How innovation can provide a sustainable solution, and what are the ways to convert any idea into sustainable product. This is basically for any student who wants to convert his idea into product. Final session is specifically for startups or new students. So what is sustainable development? We all keep on using this term that we need sustainable development. Sustainability is the need of the hour. But what do you mean by sustainable development? Basically, sustainable development means that you are using the resources in a prudent manner. You are using resources, keeping the need of future generation in mind. So sustainable development is a development that can meet the needs of present generation, and it doesn't compromise the ability of future generations to meet their need. In a way, we can say that when we are using resources so prudently that our needs are also complete, but resources are not consumed to such an extent that nothing is left for future generation. We are keeping the need of future generation in mind. So that is a sustainable development. Keeping these things in mind, United Nations on 25th September 2015 has defined 17 sustainable development goals. So the first goal says that in the world there should be no poverty. All nations should work in such a direction that the hunger index, the poverty in the world should come to zero value. There should be no hunger in the world. Good health of every human being should be there. All nations should work to provide the quality education of its citizens. Gender equality, equality between male and female should be there. Transgender should be treated equally. Clean water and sanitation is a basic right of every citizen. Affordable and clean energy should be provided to all. Everyone should be given decent work atmosphere and economic growth. Industries should prosper in a significant manner. We should try to reduce inequality. All caste, all religion, colors, everyone should be treated equal. Our cities should become self-sustaining. Cities should be sustainable overall. All communities should prosper and should move towards us in a sustainable manner. Then the consumption of resources should be done in a responsible manner. Every country should take actions to reduce the climate change, global warming. The life become water should be sustainable, and life above the water means we should be able to clean the water. Air pollution and water pollution should be minimum. Peace, justice, and strong institution for all should be provided, and all countries should work in participation to help us achieve these goals of sustainable development. So the major concerns, can I go to full screen mode? Yeah. So the major concerns of the globe nowadays are the condition of environment is degrading day by day. We are moving towards unsustainable world. So that condition of environment is a matter of concern for us all. And this has affected our health also. So the degrading state of environment is in a way related to the degrading state of human health. And the major reasons for this degradation of environment and human health is mainly because of unsustainable use of natural resources, addition of pollutants to air, water, and soil. The major problems which we all are concerned about of sustainability these days are: number one is domestic waste management. We are producing waste in a large quantity which we are not able to manage in a scientific manner. We are cutting trees, we are leading a world towards a desert. Then water is polluted, air is polluted, lack of healthcare facilities because population is increasing to such an extent that we are not able to provide healthcare facility to all the citizens of the country. Then even today in rural areas, people are using firewood, dung, LPG is relatively better, but burning of direct wood leads to generation of fumes, toxic carbon, unburned carbon particles. So the person, it is bad for the health of the person who is working in kitchen using this firewood, and it's adding to the pollutant in the environment also. Industrial consumption is also causing lot of chemicals, and they are using and they are adding that to atmosphere also. So due to increasing population are shifting from the villages towards the cities, industrialization in an unsustainable manner, we are moving towards unsustainability. Approximately 1,000 new chemicals are being synthesized every year. 60,000 to 95,000 chemicals are in commercial use nowadays. According to some reports, they stock around 450 million kilograms. You can imagine this is such a big amount. 450 million kilograms of toxins are released every year in air and water. These contaminants cause ecological problems, social problems, as well as financial losses, because in a way, when we are consuming these pollutants, they are affecting our health. So the spending of that is also comes under the that financial losses also come under an effect of air pollution only. So this solid waste management is a major challenge in urban areas as well as in rural areas throughout the world. There is a need for an effective and efficient solid waste management program because we are generating waste through a large number of activities. Continuous and uncontrolled discharge of industries is causing large harm to environment. Industries are anthropogenic activities. They are causing pollutants to the atmosphere. So when we see the type of the solid waste around us, the type of the waste, the basic kind of the waste which is generated by a community depends on various factors: their standard of living, their basic etiquettes, their cultural habits, as well as rural area, whether geographical condition, as well as like they are living in the rural areas, the waste is different. In urban areas, the different kind of waste is generated. In urban areas, since we have large number of vehicles, so the waste tires are more in urban areas. Then we are more dependent on the electronic gadgets, so more amount of electronic waste is generated in urban areas. And plastic is a common waste in both rural as well as in urban areas. Now in rural areas, since more of the cattle population is there, so the waste generated is animal dung is there. Then for the agriculture purpose, there is indiscriminate use of insecticides, pesticides, and for improving the soil health condition, fertilizers are used indiscriminately. So in rural areas, animal dung, insecticide, pesticide, fertilizers, and agro residue. We all are aware about the toxic effect of the uncontrolled burning of agro residue. When they are burnt in an uncontrolled condition, so they lead to generation of lot of toxic pollutants into air, which we all are suffering, bad effects of which we all are suffering nowadays. Scientists have developed various technologies by which, when we can burn this waste in a scientific manner under controlled conditions using suitable reactors, energy can be generated from this agro residue. But when we burn them in an unscientific manner in uncontrolled condition, this leads to generation of toxic fumes in the air. So overall speaking, the kind of the waste generated in a community depends on various factors. In general, this is the data taken from the United States. The kind of the waste generated in United States is different from the kind of the waste which is generated in other countries. But broadly speaking, the municipal solid waste in a country consists majorly of paper and paperboard waste. And secondly, the major contributor in the waste is food waste and plastic waste. Food waste, because we are not using the food in a wisely manner, especially in United States, the amount of the food waste was much higher than in any Asian country. Then rubber, textile, and plastic. These things forms a major part of the waste. Other than this, there is large proportion of metals, glass, food and wood in the municipal solid waste. So in United States, in 1 year, around 251 million tons of waste was generated, which is quite similar to, with minor variations, the similar amount is generated in other countries also. And the major pollutants which are found in this waste include various kind of metals, which can, when enter into the food chain, they can harm our health in a drastic manner. Various polyaromatic hydrocarbons. These polyaromatic hydrocarbons are the ones in which carbons are connected to each other in a chain manner, in a ringed manner. So their degradation is highly difficult. They can remain in atmosphere for hundreds of years. They can be released by these insecticides, pesticides. Various petroleum related products cause severe damage to the environment. Pesticides, chlorophenols. Chlorophenols, when burnt in air, they give toxic fumes which are full of chlorine. So they are a matter of great concern for environmentalists. The sources of these pollutions can be different, but broadly speaking, there are four major categories from which these pollutants can be generated. The first category includes intentional use of low concentration of diffuse sources. Means we are generating these pollutants intentionally. We know that they are a pollutant, but still we are using them, like various pesticides, various cosmetics. So these, although they are used in a very minute amount, their concentration is very low, but still we are using them intendedly. Second kind of sources of pollution can be unintended usage of resources, like we don't want to, we are not aware about that, we don't want to emit those, but still they are getting emitted. Like in when we are using our vehicle, the primary activity is to run the vehicle, but still pollutants are emitted out of it. So this is unintended secondary output of a process. Third sources can be natural or human-made accidents, like there was a disaster in Russia or Japan. Nuclear reactors were, there was a tsunami and then nuclear radiations leaked from the nuclear reactor in Japan. So these are the things which are not under human control, but still safety factor should be kept very high in such a sensitive area. Certain industrial activities, like we are manufacturing products, we are transporting, we are using toxins and chemicals, they cause severe amount of toxins in the atmosphere. These industrial activities, these human or man-made or natural disasters, unintended output of a process, and intentional use of low concentration of diffuse sources are the four major category of pollutants about which we are aware about. Now, when can we call a waste toxic? Every waste is not a toxic, but some waste are known as toxic waste. What makes a waste matter of great concern? Its flammability. Sometimes you must have heard about that dump site has caught fire because we are throwing some flammable compound in our dustbin, which is going directly into our municipal solid waste, and then under the conditions of open, when the heat is very high, and then suddenly that chemical catch fire, and then it spread to the whole dump site, and the whole dump site comes under the fire. So before dumping anything into municipal solid waste, we should be very careful about its characteristic. Some chemicals are very highly reactive in nature. Like plastic has a great affinity towards various kind of metals. So when plastic is there in the dump site, it will get attached to the electronic waste which is there in the this dump site. So when plastic and this electronic waste, their combination becomes the most dangerous thing. They react with each other. That plastic will absorb those metals, and since plastic is not biodegradable, so that plastic in with that enclosed metal is going to be highly dangerous for the environment. Those waste in which their pH level defines the property of any chemical compound. So sometimes some waste are there whose pH is less than 2 or whose pH is greater than 12.5. Both of these wastes are highly corrosive in nature. So we should be always careful about the disposal of such kind of waste. Certain wastes are highly toxic in nature. When they are stored unscientifically, they become highly unstable. Under certain shock conditions, they can generate toxic fumes, they can generate sulfide gases, they can generate cyanide gases. So toxicity, flammability, reactivity, and corrosivity. We have to be careful about these characteristics of any waste which we are throwing in our dustbin, which is going into our municipal corporation and which is going directly into any dump site, because ultimately it's going to come back to us only. When some pollutant is there in a dump site, when it gets leached into the soil, from the soil it can go into the water bodies, from the water bodies it can go into the aquatic animals, and we are going to consume those animals. Fishes are there, so ultimately it will enter into our food chain only. When when those toxic metals are there in a dump site, so whatever plant is growing on that contaminated soil, that plant is going to absorb those metals, and through those plants those metals will come into our food chain ultimately. So whatever we are throwing in our dustbin is actually coming to us only. So we have to be very careful about the waste we are generating. Since we know that there are so many kind of waste, so in a single presentation it's not possible to elaborate on the harmful effects or treatment or their valorization of all the greening of all the waste. It's not possible. So in this presentation I'll discuss mainly about the plastic waste. We all know that plastic is a basically, what is plastic? It's basically a polymer. There is a single monomer which is very small in size. When those small units join together, so it becomes a polymer. And how many monomers can join to make a polymer? It's not like one or two or five. Their number can vary from 1,000 to 1 lakh, even more than that. So when so many, such a large amount of monomers join together, they form a polymer. Now, when a polymer is made up of so many large number of monomers, which are joined together through strong forces, so you can imagine how much tough it is to break those bonds, to degrade them. That is why we say that polythenes, we should not use polythene, we should not use plastic in an unwise manner. Plastic was discovered in 1905 and it has revolutionized our world. When plastic came into the world, it has very specific properties, like it is cheap, it is lightweight, it is highly durable, and you can mold it into any shape. You can use it as a plastic pipe, you can use a plastic bottle, you can have a plastic bucket, you can use plastic in every sphere of life. So because of their versatility, they find their application in every sphere of life. But now these special characteristic of plastic, the properties which are a blessing for the plastic industry, ultimately after a period of time is turning out to be a matter of concern for all of us. Now, since it is so much durable, it is very difficult to break a plastic waste. It is very difficult to degrade a plastic. When plastic is there in a dump site, it is going to be there for more than 100 of years. It will remain as such. And this is a very common thing that we all are aware about. Then when plastic polythenes are there in a dump site, some animals are there in that dump site. So it has been found that various cows, when their stomach is found to have certain amount of polythenes in them, it is causing so much pain to those animals. So when we are buying a plastic, we should know its chemical property. Every plastic is not that toxin. Some plastics are there, but when we add some hot fluid to those plastics, so the chemicals which are used in the manufacturing of those plastics, those chemicals can leach into the water bottles, those tiffins, or whatever chemical we are using in that plastic, that can leach into the product, and it can spoil your food, it can spoil your product which is stored in there. So the government has decided certain guidelines. Good manufacturing practices says that when you are buying a plastic, you should see the kind of the material it is made up of. This is the symbol which shows that at the you can see at the bottom of your small bottles which you use in airtight containers, Borosil that bottles of pearl pit. You can see at the bottom of that a triangle with number 1 is written on there. One says that it is made up of polyethylene terephthalate. So it is a polymer with polyethylene terephthalate. Ethylene terephthalate, when joined together for a number of times, it becomes a polyethylene terephthalate. In short, we can call it as PETE. And it can also be known as PET. So when you see a plastic container, at the bottom of that container, you can see there is a triangle with number 1 on that. So these bottles are made up of PET. When a bottle any plastic products like these bottles in which we store our oil, at the bottom of that you can see a triangle with number 02. So it is made up of high density polyethylene. So these two kind of plastics are made for the purpose of storing water and storing oil. So they are safe, they will not leach into the product. These two are safe for this purpose. Then polyvinyl chloride. These are plastic pipes. You can see when these plastic pipes, at the bottom of them, you can see a triangle with number 03. Then 04 means low density polyethylene. 05 is for polypropylene. 06 is for polystyrene. Polystyrene is used in disposable bottles and cups, your disposable containers. It's something like thermocol. And then we can use that when we can use them in storing food particles also. Various food products are stored there, so they are found in every aspect of our house, these kind of plastics. So government has issued certain guidelines, like according to Indian standard, this manufacturers have, those who have got the Indian standard for their plastic, they should mention this code at the bottom of their product. So this code says 4 is the kind of the plastic. The first number is for 4, means this product is made up of low density polyethylene, LDPE. So when at the bottom of a product, it is written first number is for this kind of the plastic it is made up of. Then then you can say that suppose this 4 is the kind of the product it is made up of. Then D says, D means it's made up of a film or sheet. There are codes. So like D means it is either made up of film or sheet. And then there are other alphabets which are mentioned in the Indian standard. What is the meaning of these alphabets? Then 00 means it is made up of, it is a natural scrap without any pigment or no color is further added to it. The next alphabet is that its density is 1. Then M02 says that it is made up of MFR. Next tells about the amount of the ash content, 0.1% ash is there. And finally, it is in the form of granules. So the companies who have got Indian standards attached to them, they have to mention these codes at the bottom of their products or on marking on their as a marking on their product. And all these like this 4D00 D1, these codes are there in Indian standard. You can check the Indian standard, you can match that, and you can understand kind of the additives are added in your plastic or kind of the material that plastic is made up of. Now, as we all know that plastic is highly toxic in nature, large amount of plastic, which is when plastic is in a larger pieces, it is easier to separate from municipal corporation. But there is another kind of plastic which is a matter of great concern for environmentalists is microplastic. What is a microplastic? A plastic whose size is less than half centimeter. That plastic becomes microplastic. The sources of microplastic can be primary, it can be secondary. In primary microplastic, like there is a cosmetic product is there, toiletries are there. So in these kind of plastics which are made up small beads of these particles you might have seen in your cosmetic products or toiletries, they are the major sources in which the plastic is made in form of beads which are less than half centimeter. So their disposal is a great concern. It has been found, various news articles have shown their concern. Then secondary microplastic are the one which are like we have a plastic zip which are scrapped from the large pieces of the plastic, like a small piece of plastic for that plastic, the large plastic wrap is there, and then there is a breakage in that plastic and that further divided into small pieces and it becomes a microplastic. When you are using your vehicle, so its tire is made up of rubber. That tire after abrasion gives small pieces on the road. With these are the microplastics. Nylon threads, polystyrene, polypropylene bottles, they on disposal ultimately may break down into small pieces and may become a secondary source of microplastic in the atmosphere. So microplastic is everywhere. It's in the ocean, it's in the rivers, it's in the land, it's in the, even at the bottom of the ocean they are found. They can be ingested by the animals, they can be eaten by the animals. They may become a vector for the transport of various kind of organic pollutants in the atmosphere. They are found in river and as well as in the lands. But majorly the scientists, they are studying about the microplastic availability on the rivers and water bodies. Why? Because 80% of the plastic which is there on the land ultimately ends up in the oceans only. So these are, you can see various news articles. These are the news articles which have shown the concern about the availability of these microplastics in the atmosphere. Like this article says that microplastic have not even spared remote creature residing in the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. You can imagine the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean where there is no human activity. No human is going there, but this plastic has reached even to the tiniest creature which is found at the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. So that shows the severity of this problem. Scientists have found man-made fibers in the stomach of the deep ocean animals, revealing just how far-reaching the effect of this rubbish is. Then microplastic pose toxic threat to human biodiversity. Even plastic fibers were found in the tap water around the world, a survey says. So these are the eye openers for us. More than 80% of waste generated on land finds its way into ocean. A major part of waste is constituted of plastic. So these articles are can show that these microplastics are a matter of great concern. These are the pictures of some animals which are found in the ocean and they have ingested these microplastic in their stomach. This is the microbead found in the gut of one aquatic animal. This aquatic animal has also engulfed some amount of microplastic in their body. So it's causing pain to these animals, as well as it's a matter of concern for us also, because one large fish is going to consume them, and through fishes they may come to us ultimately. When they are in the water, there are some articles which say that the amount of microplastic is even higher in water, is even higher than fish larva in water. So imagine the concentration of microplastic which is there in water bodies. So what was most surprising was that these microplastics weren't found in coastal areas, but they were found in the deep ocean, thousands of miles away from land-based sources of pollution. These birds have eaten those plastics which are found on the land. So ecological effect of microplastic, there are large number of ecological effects which are associated with them. It can lead to the gut blockage in the animals, gill blockage, animals may die because of suffocation. It may lead to aberration and tissue damage in animal. They can get bioaccumulated. They can enter into our body. They can get accumulated in the environment for a long period of time. They can be translocated tissues and other circulatory systems in organisms. It can lead to higher amount of stress. Hormone disruption is also found in animal because of this, impaired reproduction, inhibition in the growth, altered behavior, chemical toxicity due to leachate. All these are the toxic effects which are associated with the presence of these microplastics in the environment. They can be ingested by the animal bodies, they can get accumulated in their body, it can cause toxicity in organisms. Then the binding reduce bioaccumulation and toxicity. They may get binded to different plastics, can get binded to different metals, they can accumulate metal in them, and they can cause toxicity in animals and in our food chain as well. Chemical transfer of plastic from organism is negligible compared to from organic matter and sediments. So different researchers have tried to investigate the presence of microplastic in environment, their ecological effect, their environmental effect, their effect on human health, and how they can enter our body. So microplastic is found in the land as well as in ocean. So less studies have been done about the presence and harmful effect of microplastic on the land side. Plastic litter breaks down in the environment. Microplastic enter terrestrial environment. It can be through sewage sludge, which leads to the land degradation. Microplastic can enter into water through waterways or through runoff. So microplastic is found not only in air, it is found in the water, it is found in even in some samples of beer, seafood, honey, salt, tap water. Different researchers have detected their presence in air, food particles, honey, salt. So they are entering into our diet, they are entering into environment. Animals can ingest them, we can inhale them when they are in air. So their inhalation through nose is also possible. Their exposure level is very high. They are present in a large amount. They have various chemical effects. They affect the microbes. They can affect all human beings. The studies on health implications are very less, but in general, we know that they can lead to accumulation in our body, they can affect our immunity responses, they can cause various respiratory problems, they can happen because of chemical leaching as well. So this degrading state of environment because of presence of these plastic waste, electronic waste, and other kind of pollutants like these sulfides, peptides, and these pesticides, insecticides, large amount of pollutants in environment is ultimately leading to a degrading state of environment. According to Ministry of Jal Shakti, around half of the groundwater in agriculture-rich states of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan is contaminated. the water is contaminated, as well as water is depleting in these states because we are using in an unsustainable manner. According to a study done by University of Michigan, which was published in March 2021, it says that depleting groundwater will cause a fall in agriculture produce, especially in wheat growing states such as Punjab and Haryana, by 20% by 2025, which is a big amount. Large amount of people are dying due to air pollution. Different reports have shown that this particulate matter 2.5 pm 2.5 is causing harmful effects to the human health. So all these things are a matter of great concern because ultimately they lead to global warming, they are connected to global warming, and they have severe consequences. So what is the way forward? The way forward is sustainable development, that is sustainable use of resources using 5R technique, which is refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Refuse where you don't want to use anything, reduce overconsumption of resources, reuse whatever you can, repurpose your things, think about it, what is the purpose of this, and recycle as much as you can. A traditional waste management hierarchy says that the size of this triangle shows the relative importance of these activities. So a traditional waste management hierarchy says that we should reduce the consumption of resources as a whole. It's a top-down approach, which says that at source only we should reduce the amount, whatever is possible. Then whatever is we are consuming, we should try to reuse as much as we can. We can recycle and compost whatever we can, transform waste into energy, and finally, whatever is left should be sent to landfill. Now, landfilling is a very common solution which is found in the municipal solid sites, but actually landfill is also related to various toxic release of toxic chemicals. Whatever electronic waste we are adding to landfill, electronic waste is a source of large number of metals. So under the when that waste is dumped in the dump site, so that waste is under the direct exposure of sunlight, direct exposure of rain. So because of high temperature inside at the bottom of that landfill, that metal gets leached into the groundwater. And that it has been found that in certain industrially the areas where industrial activities are taking place, like the sites near the Okla industries or sites near various rivers of Bangalore, they are found to have large amount of metal in them. So ultimately, those metals are getting leached into the soil and it's contaminating the groundwater. So landfilling is not a very sustainable solution to treat the waste. So the modern waste management strategy says that we should prevent as much as possible. This is known as a top-down approach in which we should prevent as much as possible. Then we should reduce the amount of material which we are using. We can apply in the industries, we can apply the optimization techniques which can help us to let us know that how much optimum amount of raw material is there so that wastage is minimum. We should reuse, recycle, and recover. These are as much important, they are highly important that we should reuse, recycle, and recover as much as possible. Landfilling and disposal should be at the bottom of this, and the minimum amount of waste should go into the landfill, and minimum amount of waste should be disposed. So there are different researchers have come up with some innovative ideas to treat these waste. Like in one of the studies I was going through, it was found that some researchers have developed microcapacitors using fallen leaves. In my PhD work, I have tried some techniques how we can extract valuable metals from electronic waste so that the amount of the waste which is generated, that is deprived of metals, and so that it doesn't affect the environment, and we are generating economy out of that. Metal which we are extracting from the waste is a economy generated. There are certain plants which can absorb the toxin from the water bodies. So this is a floating wetland to make the water bodies pollution free. Some researchers, one of the very interesting news article says that some students at IIT Guwahati, they have prepared school bags which have solar panel on them. So during the daytime, the solar panels get charged, and at night they can power one LED light. So researchers are coming up with innovative ideas. Like in this water purifier, it is consuming zero electricity and it is giving pure water to us. In this study, researchers have developed roads from the waste plastic. This has happened in Bangalore. Then bricks from the plastic is also developed by researchers. So different researchers are coming up with innovative ideas. In this research, the textile waste was used to make wall panels and decorative boards. So when we have an innovative idea, how can we convert that idea into a product? There is a need to apply scientific approaches to that. You cannot do your in an unplanned manner. So first of all, you have to find an innovative solution to some existing problem. Once you have an idea, then you need to have an idea about the market where that product is going to have some value, where there is going to be some, where you are going to have some economic benefits. You have to calculate your profitability, how much profit you are going to get out of that. So once you have made that planning on paper, then from that we can go to lab scale experiments. We can do small experiments through which we can optimize our process. How much product can be produced using how much amount of raw materials. These lab scale experiments can help us to identify how much amount of A we can add to how much amount of B to produce how much amount of C. So we can develop a correlation between different factors. We can analyze what are the factors which can affect the yield of a process. Like we can I want to generate some large plant which is made up of steel, and I want to have a capacity of 1000 ton. So directly I cannot go for the installation of that 1000 ton of the plant. So initially I'll do some experiments on a glass reactor. So that will be like of capacity of 1 liter. So my product in lab scale is going to be 1 liter. During those lab scale experiments, I can make a model. I can make a correlation between different variables which are going to affect my output, which is going to affect my yield. So using that glass column, I have calculated the parameters which are going to be important for my process. And then I have developed a correlation. I have developed a mathematical model between different variables. How the yield of Y is related to the pH of my process, pH of my chemical, the concentration of my chemical, then what is the effect of surface tension, what is the effect of viscosity. So how my pressure drop in the column is related to friction factor, my concentration of the chemicals, how the shape factor of that product is coming into play. So what are different variables which are going to affect my yield can be calculated under the lab conditions only. And not only this lab conditions, we can identify the risk associated with my process. What are the bioethical are we going to follow some bioethical approval also? What are the guidelines we have to follow? What are the approvals required? And it will also give you a brief idea about the overall economy of my process. Once I have established a lab scale mathematical model for my process, I have developed a correlation between different variables, then I can go for the process intensification. Now, process intensification is a different kind of process in which when we are using different unit operation in a lab scale, we are performing different small scale operation in a lab scale experiment. So we have to convert those small scale operations, those small scale steps to a larger step. So we have to intensify our process. So how that mathematical model which we have developed during lab scale experiments, how we can convert that into a process intensification, how we can increase the yield of the process from 1 liter to 1000 liter. So using the field of process intensification, once we have developed that mathematical model, then using artificial intelligence and machine learning tools, we can intensify our product. We can calculate that how we can calculate, how we can develop a larger yield of that product. And finally, we can go for the commercialization of the product. So before the commercialization of the product, we have to see what is the market where we have to sell that product, where the demand of that product is there. Then different we can we can also go for the standardization of the product, which Indian standard or American testing standards we have to apply for. Once the things which have got their standardization done, the consumer has more faith in those things. So when even when we are going to buy something, so we see that whether this thing has got some standardization done or not. So in case we go for the Indian standards or American standard for testing material, that standardization done, the commercialization of product become even more, commercial process is going to be more successful. So this way, using an innovative idea for any existing scientific problem, we can generate a sustainable solution. We have to come with some out of box idea for any existing problem, and finally we can convert that idea to a commercial product in the field. So, in the end, I would just like to end with the famous quote which says that we all should learn to live together. If we all learn in a harmony, if we learn to live happily, then we can progress together. We all must learn to happily progress together. Otherwise, we all will perish miserably together. Thank you.